Hi, everybody. Hope everybody is doing well. I'm looking forward to, I think it's a couple of weeks, a week and a half, a week and 10 days or something like that, 1 week to the seminar. We need a few more questions for the seminar. And what I would suggest is those of you who are often very thoughtful, um, and those of you who aren't very thoughtful, if you wouldn't mind sending in a few questions. Uh, the reason is I really basically prefer to answer something that's on your mind and you're wondering about rather than make it up myself. Um, it's surprising, no matter what questions come up, often other people are thinking along the same line. So remember, no question is silly or all that sort of stuff that we're a little bit nervous about when we're dealing with those things. I have a few tonight. I'll do the best I can with. And remember, when you're listening, don't forget to think about these things because you grow through you. You don't grow through someone else's answer. This is a key thing to keep in mind. And while I'm talking about it, the other thing is to remember that energetically you grow. It's not through your personality styles or what you believe has to be more true than somebody else's truth. That's an old adage, and it will remain a present adage for probably, who knows, maybe 1,000 years, because of our fitful interest in actual growing being primarily a personality deal, and it isn't a personality deal. And this is something that we get very mixed up with. And we'll likely continue to be mixed up with it as time goes on because it has happened that way in the past, and it still is happening. I wish everybody well with that one. This is one from Dominic Clark from Glasgow, Scotland. And he touches on a couple of things that are from my perspective, I feel is fairly important. And he says, my question is about something you mentioned a few times, but I really struggle to practice. When I have a difficult emotional response to something that has happened to me, I can mostly watch it, use some energy exercises, or even soften things down. But occasionally, things happen that provoke such a strong reaction, I just want to run away. Welcome to humanity. Most of us have had this experience, and I'm not putting the experience down. I just want you to know that you're not alone in the world. If I can't get away, this reaction can turn into very strange thoughts that are uncomfortable. At this point, I'd like to have some distance and be compassionate with myself, but usually it's so close I can't find the space. It's really true. What happens is if I share this, what is going on in my head with someone else, I get external reassurance that I am mistaken in my thinking and that I can get some distance from the feelings that I can work with my reactions. One of the dilemmas is, not everybody wants to do that kind of thing. In other words, share things that are difficult for them with other people. And but it does release that emotional aspect. That's why therapists are very important, in my opinion. Our dilemma is also in these things that I think this is really valuable for everybody to really take to heart, is sometimes we put a tremendous amount of pressure on ourselves in a kind of a way that supports what we think spiritual growth should look like. And it often is a rendering based on personality style. This is not negative, not right, not wrong. You've heard me say this before. Not good, not bad. It's just what human beings do. And it helps some people never to be able to think about anything. They just believe in something and they fight for it because it makes them feel that they're not the only one around. But if you're really attempting to grow internally, everyone who does runs into this pressure, this internalized pressure. It's fundamental. Number one, you're facing often a rendering or a rendition of yourself, and you're doing it inside, and often you don't know you're doing it because you're trying to maintain a basic image of what you think is valuable. And that's what our personalities do all the time. It's just legitimate that we do this at these levels of engagement with others. And it's difficult because part of us then is willing to allow ourselves to go a little bit into a state that is reminiscent of you being young. And that state can happen in more than one way, of course. One that, depending on your background, that you're bad and you don't deserve to grow. Another way is you're great and no one else is as great as you are. There's all kinds of renderings in this. If you're looking at a continuum, you can go from 0 to, let's say, 1 billion, or whatever that kind of level of thinking will take you to, based on the thoughts you have of your ability or inability. We forget that being in a certain way is basically a part of preparation for growing. In other words, an inner relationship with you growing has nothing to do with your determining how able you are or unable you are. It has to do with your ability to allow yourself to notice what's going on inside the best you can. And that does not mean perfection, and it never will be. And then nodding, and then not judging yourself, not putting yourself down, not elevating yourself, not putting yourself up, just being curious. I wonder how I had that happen to me. But I know what happens. And you're having a dialogue. It's not a monologue. It's a dialogue with yourself. As if you are caring and loving of the self that is attempting to grow, and understanding the self that wants to determine its own self-validation as good, bad, right, or wrong, whatever it may be. That inner dialogue that goes on with you, no one else needs to know it. If you're respectful of yourself, you'll see yourself in various levels of growing. And you'll allow yourself the recognition of understanding. I don't do well there. I do a little better over here. Oh, I don't do badly here. I do fairly well here. These are relative terms. They're not validating terms in the sense that you are making this great statement that this is more important than that, and that's more important than this. For some, this kind of thinking is very difficult. For others, there's an attempt to do this. Even in the attempt, you will find yourself loosening a little bit, letting go a tiny little bit of the agitation that cultivates within the self to become worthy of an interaction with higher states. And that is more in the negative training side of things. In the not so negative parts of training, you have no room in you for anything else. Only what comes into your mind has to be true. Otherwise, somehow there's something wrong with you. And there isn't anything wrong with you. And you're not always right. Most of the time, it's a relative term. Looking at it from this point of view, this is how it looks. Looking at it from another point of view, this is how it looks. This is extremely difficult for us as human beings to even attempt to engage with, because we believe we're called upon to make some relative stand. So when we make that stand, we get covered with our own self-interest. If we're curious and we understand how difficult a human being who is living in life finds it, then suddenly we're hit with the concept or the idea that there are tremendous amounts of human beings on this planet, of which you are only one. You ache to have others who agree with you, but there may be no one who can engage with life like you can, provided you find out how that you can is. I once remember a person I listened to her talk back in the 70s, I think it was the 70s, early 70s. Olga World. She was a healer, and I think it was in Philadelphia. And she said, it's fascinating to find out that at that time, I think there was probably around 6 billion plus of us kicking around, of the fact that here we are, and we're all, every one of us, involved with engaging with life and trying to find out who the heck we are. Meaning, trying to introduce yourself to you in an honest manner, which means maybe a lot more than what we understand. Could mean that we're trying to see some positive aspects in us rather than everything being positive. Some things that we're not very good at rather than everything that we do we're not very good at. I know finding this way of looking at things so that you can allow yourself to be okay with something that you don't do well with is difficult for some, especially when you're having dialogues with people. But of course, I'm talking about the dialogue that you can have with yourself. If you know you have a tendency to be always self-evaluating in a higher state, like a state of importance, soften it down. If you're doing it in the opposite direction, soften it down. Because it's not all the way you think in a particular time. 1 second. Enlarge the second. That's what you do. You enlarge the second. You make it longer. Instead of only 1 second, it gets to be 30 seconds. It gets to be a half a day. It gets to be a week. It gets to be a month. There's no dialogue going on. You begin to self-protect that second, or the image. It creates images. So images, then you start to protect. And in doing that, you create a capacity to evaluate yourself negatively. And somehow you continue to do this, or evaluate yourself very positively all the time. No one else can measure up to this standard. That's all personality stuff. And we do this because we're vulnerable. Basically, both levels, both engagements are vulnerable. Fear we won't be accepted by others. So we determine to be accepted by others. You will be. You'll find people that'll be okay with. And if you don't find enough, well, you'll search to try and find more, because that'll be really good. And the opposite direction, same thing can happen. Look to understanding the best you can that you are a human being living on this planet. And you're not perfect, but you're precious, of great value. And if you can understand what we've been talking about for a number of years, as you begin to allow yourself to soften inside, the energy that is engaging with you and where your focus goes will begin to soften as well. It's not a willful thing. It's a gentling thing. You're finding respect for something inside of you, rather than only the images that you portrayed or that you want to portray. It requires a little bit of thought. It requires pulling back within yourself a bit and engaging as if you enjoy life, not forcing your enjoyment on yourself, which means basically everyone outside of you has to see you as happy and really able and all that sort of thing. It's not real inside. And I'm talking about not necessarily the personality seeing that it's not real. It's a deeper level of engagement that we have in a relationship to what we have to do to be valued somehow within ourselves and in the eyes of others. Be careful. If you can't find too many people to agree with how your angle of seeing life is, you start to turn on yourself. And this is not appropriate. But it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. Be kind and respectful to the person you are. And slow things down a bit if you need to be, if that's comfortable within you. And what does that mean? It means Don't be a tyrant within yourself. Beat yourself up because you can't do this or that or the other thing. Or delude yourself into thinking you can do anything and everything. There is a state within. I'm getting a little off, taking the pressure off yourself, but nonetheless. But there is a state within, especially in the heart center. And there is a question that somebody asked in here. I'm sorry. I'll take a peek and see if I can find it real quick. Oh yeah, here's one from Barbara Newport. I'm just going to see if I can blend these two a little bit. I'd like to hear more about the disaffected heart, and she's talking about at this point about a story that's written by Alice Munro, The Dance of the Happy Shades, where the author discusses, or at least engages one of her clients with, and calls it the disaffecting heart. In other words, a heart that slows down. It's really a solar plexus, emotional dispositional process that slows down, turns on the upper part of the heart. And there is no response that goes out there. In other words, another way you could say that, if you're looking at an emotional-based heart center, what happens is that the heart center begins to express itself in alignment with the root gonad and solar plexus. And it moves its attention up to the throat center, this energy flow, in a kind of a way that opens the throat and stimulates the brow center. I think you've heard me talk about this before. Then it begins to open another aspect of the heart center. It's not a permanent way to engage. It doesn't happen 24 hours a day, but you'll have moments of it, weeks of it, days of it, and it feels and sounds like this. You're unaffected by what used to affect you before emotionally. This happened in the 70s. I think you've heard me say this before, when a tremendous amount of people, roughly about 1973, began to come back to America, Canada, or Europe, from India, after going over there and spending a lot of time meditating and engaging with people who had gentle, soft, emitting energy coming from them, whether they knew that or not. Gurus, this kind of thing, people who are really able enough to be helpful in the movement of energy that was based on personality orientations. In other words, their personality. I've been in an ashram for 10 years. I'm really important, this kind of thing. Fine. Doesn't make you any more spiritual than anybody else. But nonetheless, it's the same kind of thing that our personalities grab onto. And they started pulling out and going home, getting jobs, having families. They were moving into a place within them where they were starting to open up into a broader perspective, which was necessary in getting them off of their personalizations so that they could move into a different level or state, so that they began to understand that even in that level of spiritual growth, which they were involved with, very helpful, now they must learn how to live in life and maintain that level of spiritual growth as if it were just part of living life, and they didn't have a title on their shirt, and they didn't have a way of acting. They didn't wear certain clothes. They didn't walk around telling other people how great they were or how poor they were. Or it's very difficult stuff. And in fact, that heart opening changes the way the person or individual engages. It's not like, oh, is that what I have to do to change? Oh, okay. Here I am. Let me change that. Oh, yeah. Okay. Now I can act like that. Nobody cares whether you act like that or not. The issue isn't you acting. The issue is you being. And in that place, you're not acting anymore. It's disaffected by the need that you have for having to be a certain exclusive way that all spiritual folks are. And it was a major period of growth for tremendous amounts of people at that moment. Unfortunately, they didn't really understand what was happening. And one story that I've told before, and you probably remember this, is in New Jersey when I was giving a seminar there. A gentleman came to the door. He had heard there was a meditation seminar, and he wanted to come in, and it was fine. He could come in. And he meditated for about 15, 20 years in an ashram. Really, when he was a kid, he started, and he left when he was about 28 or something like that. Came back to America, got married, had kids. Amazing, interesting story. When he began to meditate again, it was as if he never left. He was right exactly where he was before, because that stuff doesn't leave you. Inner growth doesn't leave you. It hasn't got a symbol or a sign on it. As a matter of fact, the more you're able to engage with it, the softer, gentler things are, and actually you can live life the way you did before. Meaning, you can attempt to do that, but the heart center in that place, the throat and the brow center, will affect what you think and how you engage. It changes you somewhat. And in that change, part of it is you back away from the pressure, at least to a large degree, that you have on you to perform spiritually. Those are early stages. And you continue to grow. And you begin ever so slowly to watch more and recognize more and understand, respect better the need that you don't need to be important in the eyes of others. It's not how we are brought up. And I hope you're hearing that part. One of the things you can do, I hope that helps you too, Barbara. But one of the things you can do is keep focusing on the hands. I know you meditate. If you're meditating too much, it'll cause inner pressure. And when I'm talking about too much, I'm talking about 3 or 4 hours a day, which I know you sometimes do from time to time. And I would say when you're out looking for something to do, consider taking up a hobby of some kind. For me, sports was important. So that got me to, it's a leveler. You, you really do find out when you're able at something and when you're not able at something. Then play and don't be able at something. It's just as important as being able at something, even though a little piece in your personality is going to say, yeah, but I think I would like to be more able than I am. Yeah, sure. That's humanity. That's where we are. And if I remember correctly, and I could really be wrong in this, Don, there was a kind of a tickle towards you being involved with lawn bowling at one time. I hope I have that right. I'm not sure. It's such a long time ago. You might have mentioned it. Anyway, what it does, it gets you focused on something else. And the kind of person you are, you'll not completely focus off of growing. And then search out for something that, no matter what it is, just doesn't matter. Something that you can come up with where you feel comfortable, and do that. Movement is really important, especially physical movement. It discharges that emotional intensity. Be a very often high state is related to the physical form, and it causes tremendous intensity to engage with you on one of your favorite centers, chakras. And you're trying to loosen that up and let it go. Balancing helps a little bit. Find where the center is. Put those hands out to the side, underneath the armpits, and you'll start to recognize where those systems are attempting to move upward. Don't do it all the time. It will bring tremendous amounts of flow in relative to your present focus. One way to find that out is with anybody is to understand that the tremendous intensity of energy coming in is because you have tremendous intensity inside. Ask that it be softer. Talk to that flow. And be kind to yourself. Yeah, sure. Everybody gets tremendous intensity. It's part of cycling through and growing. In our personality styles, that becomes the goal. It's not the goal. There's no goal in that. Softening it down, gentling, being gentle inside, that's the goal. Being gentle. Being gentle is, let's say, in the eye of the beholder. And it's like, it's Disney World out there. And what I mean by that is, we try to grow the best we can. Everyone. Growing is defined by styles and views of what things have to look like to be valued. And that valued determination is related to the personality, not related to a higher state. So as long as we are in that process of growing, we will continue to determine things based on our personality's orientation, not based on a higher state orientation. This is one of the fundamental difficulties that we have in relationship to growing. At some state, you will notice a flow that's different than what you believe the personality would determine is a true flow of growing. And that will be soft. That will be intermittent or surprising. Words can't describe it, really describe it, honestly. You can get, you can do a feel thing, try to get close to it. But you're not going to be hitting it with words perfectly. Be respectful of yourself. It's real key. Taking a look and believing that you have to judge yourself and how you're going, it doesn't work. Either way, positive or negative. Middle ground. Okay, is this going? Yeah, I do that. Okay, I do that too. Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, I would like to be able to do this better. Okay, all right. Go slow. You don't know what better is. There's another question here that links it up with this. Very interesting. I have to search for it too. It's a question by, I think, Marie Jose. Oh yeah, here it is. How we doing? Okay. And the question is, sounds strange. I agree. What would the significance of seeing a Buddha surrounded by flame mean? Very interesting. Because in Buddhism, there are these images, and they're multifaceted, very fascinating from my perspective. By the way, they have similar things in Hinduism as well, and in the Taoist orientation, but let's talk about this one. If an individual is covered by flame, a Buddha, what does it mean? Here's kind of what it might mean. This individual is capable of being engaged with an energy that is tremendously peaceful, quiet, and their mind is empty, and the flow feels like no flow. It feels as if you're quite aware, but there's total emptiness within and around you. So gentle, you just can't. It's difficult to even speak about because it's so quiet, and we are not quiet inside. We are doing normal us, individually, whoever you are. And that is preparation. That state is preparation for an engagement with a beingness at another state that is often called in Buddhism the flame that never burns. That in itself is an exceedingly high state. And that I'll be talking about on the weekend coming up, where, not this weekend, but next weekend, where there was a question about overshadowing, and I will talk about that particular kind of thing then. I think it was one by Chris McLaughlin. I'm not sure, but I think so. And another one by Susan Hardy. I'll be talking about both of those on the weekend. appreciate more questions along those lines or any other line. But when that occurs, it affects the individual in their personality, in their emission of energy through the chakras, depending on what the personality can allow to occur so that others can be helped. And that's a kind of a really short form thing. What it does is helps you to understand that the personality, good, bad, right, wrong, wonderful, whatever, is not in the equation, but the ability to observe and the inclination to attempt to quiet down the rendering of a so-called objective view from the individual who's assessing themselves. That is not helpful, but that is a part of us all growing. What do you mean? It means any and most of us go through these very inclinations. Sometimes feeling really good that you might have done something really well. Sometimes feeling really bad because you weren't able to do something that you think everybody can do, but you can't. Sometimes halfway in the middle, something, well, I'm pretty good at that, but a lot of people are better. All of that, all of those things are in the normal range of a human being. And now when I'm saying normal, here's what I mean. From one extreme to the other. That's how others are. Whoever you think you are, others are that. I don't care whether you think you're the most narcissistic person in the whole universe. There are others like that. You're the saddest, most miserable person who ever existed. There are others like that. There's a tremendous variance on our planet. What can be so wrong with finding a different middle ground? Some would feel that whatever they were doing, they were already in the middle ground. Yeah, find a different middle ground. Slow it down. Be generous. Be generous with others. Be kind if you can. Attempt it if you can't. Why should I bother? You don't have to. That's the thing. If you don't, it just makes things coarser. And you become more validated because you're afraid. Soften the fear down the best you possibly can. Ask for help for the bloomin' thing. I do. I'm just a person. If you do, you're just a person. But I have met people who say, oh, I'm not going to ask for any help. I'm really great and I'm wonderful and I'm able to do this. I don't need the help, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay. Do that. Eventually, you'll find the humanness in you and the vulnerability and the humility and the recognition that we're in this and we're very similar. Just the moments are a little longer for some in certain places, and a little less for others in those places. Our systems are time sensitive. If you don't believe me, try getting through a year without reacting. Try getting through a year of being a rendering of something other than what you've already been trained to be. You find it not so easy if you're being honest with yourself. Go slow. Be respectful. Continue. That's the difficult way. The easy way, do what you do. Because every time you do what you did yesterday, you'll do it again tomorrow. And even then, take the pressure off. Do what you can. Find something to do physically that's related to these planes. It takes the pressure off of you having to do this, that, and the other thing to gain access to something special. You're already special. The same thing is true emotionally, and the same thing is true mentally. It will be helpful. I do. Your seeing it is a lot more important than my seeing it. My doing it will be difficult for me relative to me. Your doing it will be difficult for you relative to you, or easy, or easier. All we're doing is trying to find our way. Try to find an honest second impact. And see the people around you as trying to do the same thing. And it will be helpful to you. You don't have to be better than them. Just be you. Best you can. So I wish you well, Dominic, with this one. This is what I would call sometimes things get a hold of you, and loosen up the grip just a little bit, the best you can. You can do that with your hands. You can remind yourself of a silly thing. Open the hands. Open the physical hands. And realize that sometimes we hang on to things so tightly in our versions of us that we don't understand that others are doing the same thing. But we do know how difficult it is not to do exactly what we were doing today, yesterday, a little bit at a time. That's extremely helpful. Be patient with yourself, respectful, kind. Keep going, but relax it. Please. There are concepts around that have to do it all right away. Doesn't work that way. Never has. It's all preparation. Smile. And do your best to be a little less serious. Good luck with that one. Because we're all trained in these Western orientations. Eastern too, pretty trained that way. To be darn serious about our spiritual growth. Okay, I think what we'll do is we'll start to meditate. And I think that would be, because if I get on to the next question, it's going to be longer. And I think that's the best route to take. I wish you well, everybody. And for those of you who are going to sign up but haven't, remind yourself to do it so that it takes the pressure off of Marlene when she's trying to work things through. I wish you well, everybody, and we'll be meditating. Thank you. Now we'll just begin to do the balancing and grounding on your own, and have a good evening.